Welcome Fontbonne students and alum to this Career Development Night sponsored by the Networking Committee of the Alumni Board and the Career and Development Center. I am Lottie Page. I am president of the Fontbonne Alumni Association Board of Directors. I am also the chair of the Philanthropy Committee for the Alumni Association. Tonight's event is free and part of an ongoing support of Fontbonne's graduates. However, your financial support is always welcome. You can make a contribution at the registration desk by scanning the QR code, or you can grab a donation envelope. We as alumni give back to Fontbonne, and it increases our participation matrix that's tracked by the U.S. News World and Report, and that figures into our school's ranking, so it's pretty important. I recommend joining the Century Club. With that, you just have to give a small donation every month. So you can see the advancement staff for details on that. So tonight, we welcome back 6 alumni to share their stories of their career paths, discover how they used grit to overcome challenges and create opportunities along the way to becoming the dynamic leaders that they are today. To facilitate tonight's conversation, I would like to introduce Jennifer Bonet. Jennifer Bonet is an outspoken advocate for women and inclusive community builder of intentional connections between women of all titles, ethnicities, industries, backgrounds, and zip codes. Jennifer is best known for her international best-selling books, which are built to inspire others through a collaboration of women sharing personal stories and their anthologies of grit, which stands for growth, resilience, intention, and tenacity. She is the founder of Grit Community, which encompasses course, coaching, masterminds, events, and cohorts of women as facilitators filled with like-minded growth mindset participants. She has built content to allow others to identify their own strengths, as well as understand how to live life with grit. Jennifer is a native to the St. Louis area. She grew up in Sunset Hills, and she is a graduate of Lindbergh High School. She also has her undergraduate degree in business administration and psychology from Fontbonne University. She earned her dual master's, her MA and her MS from Missouri State University, and she holds a certificate as a Brene Brown certified coach, Focus St. Louis Women in Leadership, and Leadership St. Louis from Focus St. Louis. She has completed her life and health certification and is presently in the She Leader program with WTW. She is a publisher and author of multiple internationally best-selling books, which some are found at Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, and on Amazon. Owning Your Grit, Growth, and Resilience, which just came out 3 weeks ago, and the Deconstructing Grit collection. Jennifer was named top business banker 6 months into her banking career. She made the cover of the St. Louis Small Business Monthly as 2021's top 100 person to know and help grow, which was the first time anybody from the Enterprise Bank and Trust was awarded. And she also was awarded the President's Circle by the Enterprise Bank and Trust as top performer. Jennifer is a relentless agent for change and passionate about supporting women in reaching their full potential and achieving their success. Throughout her career, she has had to harness her own grit as she leans into the support of others around her to be the person she needed through her challenging times. So without further ado, Jennifer Bonet.
Now I'm blushing because that was quite the intro. So I am so excited to be here today, and I was thinking back 20 years ago when I was 18 and I was graduating from high school, how much of an impact that just graduating from Fontbonne opened up so many doors. So I'm just so grateful to give back and to serve in this capacity. And all of these incredible women right here, these are the ones that we should be giving the long spiels because they are absolutely so dynamic and so incredible, and I'm so excited you guys all chose to come. So if you didn't know it, they're all Fontbonne alumni from different ages, different backgrounds, different everything. And they're leaders. They're incredible. They're killing it in our market. They live here, right here in St. Louis. So talking about growing your network, these are the people to reach out to after you're finished with this event tonight. Make sure you connect. So anyway, so we've got Pat Coleman in the red. We've got Carla Bailey at the bottom. We have Roberta Moore right here in the middle. And we have Michelle Stegg right here and Miriam Bagardi. So I'm going to get started with a couple of questions, and then we're going to open up to Q&A after. So the first question that I'd like to ask all of you, and just go ahead and pick up the mic and answer whatever order you like. So, you know, you hear a lot of people talking about building out your personal brand and your network and your board of trusted advisors. When you are thinking about your support system, and which is a critical component of your professional success, what are some of the things that you've utilized within your growth mindset to build your network, your personal board of advisors, your trusted advisors? What does that look like for you, and how did you get started? So who would like to kick it off? All right, Roberta.
So because, is this on?
Is it on now? It sounds like it's on now. Okay. So one of the things that is near and dear to my heart right now is it's a pay to belong group, but it's headed by someone named Carrie Nola. She's in California, and she is a former therapist. She has surrendered her license to be a business coach, and every Friday during COVID, so for 2 years, every Friday, she held what she called Healer Circle by Zoom. So there's many of us from different parts of the country, but we all meet for an hour and a half. Now it's every other Friday. Now that we're past 2022, it's every other Friday. But we help each other solve, we can speak up and ask a question, and you've got 30 people at least on the call with Carrie facilitating, where we can say, what are you seeing? What's your challenge this week? How are you feeling? And we've had people who are, what wasn't me, but we've had some people that were burnt out and, you know, were crying. It does end up being mostly women more than men, but we're able to support each other. And that support that I feel all the time, even if it's not the Friday Zoom call, is nothing short of amazing. It kind of inspires me, boosts me up, and I feel part of something. So it's really important, I think, to feel part of something.
Is this on? Okay. So I think just with the question about growth, I just feel like building my network it's very important to find people you align with and that share your passion. So I mean, a few of these ladies I already know. I don't know everybody here that well. I know Jennifer very well because she's the curator of these books and she's kind of drawn us all in. Jennifer and I align. We think a lot the same. We kind of know we can finish each other's sentences. At this point, we've worked on so many projects together. But I think just finding authentic people who share your passion is important. And you also need a close, trusted circle when you're developing your network, your business network, and your career path. You want to make sure you have a mentor, a coach, and then people in your network you can trust and rely on. And then you're going to find people who you don't always align with, and you just have to play nice with those people. And don't give them too much. Don't share too many ideas. Just kind of stay within your circle. I just think it's important to find the authentic people out there.
That was perfect.
Am I on? Yes. What I have to say about that is it sounds cliche, but it's the truth when they say that you're the CEO of you, and then you build your board of directors around you, and that becomes your trusted circle. But you can't get that without the number one thing is building relationships. You have to be very good at building relationships and be willing to kick through your fear of meeting the right people. It could just start with someone that you don't know, but you get the opportunity to get to know them, and if they align with you authentically, and then you start to build that relationship. It is reciprocal, but I do believe that when you build that trusted advisor group, you have to be a great listener, They're not going to tell you anything wrong. And you don't want to put people around you that is always going to tell you what makes you feel good. You want those people that will push you, make you feel uncomfortable, even sometimes, heck, upset you, where you can step back and be like, I don't even want to talk to that person anymore. But you will realize that they are probably the people that should be in your circle, and you don't need a lot of people. Having your trusted advisors and growing your network is somewhat different from saying that you have your tribe. You have, as a woman, you have your girls, who is going to be there for you. They're going to have your back. But sometimes that group of people are the ones that they get down in there with you, and you don't want that. If I'm upset, I want to be able to get over it quickly, and so if I'm upset at them, you're going to be upset at them. And so you're not going to give me probably the best advice. Yeah, go back and do this and do that, when that's not what I need. I need for someone to listen to me, I listen to them, and that they put me on the right path to move forward in my journey.
And I would just add to think about the diversity of that board as well, and the strengths that they bring. And so, and not to be intimidated by people who may be further ahead. That's what you want. People that are further ahead than you are, that are more skilled. And oftentimes when you see that, sometimes you'll shy away. But you should really think about, and most of the times you see people shying away and being intimidated and insecure, and so they'll stay away from that instead of cultivating that relationships. But you need that person, you need someone like that. That's not the whole board, but at least that person on the board, or a couple of those people on the board, because then you can begin to leverage. And, iron sharpens iron. And so instead of being intimidated, to think about how can I really leverage, or like I like to say it, how can you harness their genius, and to begin to really sharpen who you are and who you want to be, and to be able to glean. And so just the diversity of your board as well.
Everything everybody has said has been really spot on. I was just going to piggyback on the relationship piece. Everything you do in business, and in reality, everything you do in life is about relationships, period. Every job you are about to get, every future internship you are about to get, your resume can be incredible. You get the job based on relationships. So I would say that the most important relationship you have, especially starting out, which can be really difficult, if you've got that board of directors, you're the president. So the most important relationship you have to have is that with yourself. Yeah. So learning to really listen to what your intuition tells you. Your intuition will never, ever lead you wrong. Although, it's nothing but women up here, and we have a lifetime of the world teaching us to pull away from our intuition. And so that relationship between you, your head, and your gut, you are your own president, and that has to be in line, and that has to be on point. Once you can get that kind of managed, you will be able to spot those authentic people that you want sitting on your board with you much, much easier.
Amazing advice. And my mantra is always, your life insurance policy are the relationships in which you carry, because those are the folks that are going to say your name in a room of opportunities. Yep. So it is all about the relationships. So that leads me into the next question, which is about resilience. So when you're building your network and you do all the right things to get those doors open, but yet you get a no-show or a cancellation, how do you stay resilient? What are your steps to detach yourself from those negative failures or hardships that happen when you're trying to build your network, trying to build your personal brand? What are kind of the steps in order to be resilient while you're networking?
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries. Again, boundaries and understanding what those are for you come from listening to your intuition. It comes from your gut. Having boundaries with work is huge. So one way I protect myself, so I'm a mental health counselor. I'm in private practice. It's just me. If it's a no call, no show, I don't get paid, right? Well, one of my firm boundaries is the way I protect myself against that stuff. If you're a no call, no show for me, I bill, no matter what. no matter what, let's be real. If there's an emergency, we all understand the difference between emergencies and a no-call, no-show. If you are a no-call, no-show, I run your card because that's one way that I protect myself against burnout. So that's my answer.
So I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm not going to act like I have that one down pat, because I don't. So I think because my specialty is emotional intelligence, I'm going to say the most important part about that is similar to what Michelle said about your self-regard. Self-regard in the model I use is another word for confidence. And for me, it's about not only boundaries, but also having clarity. So I tend to have very, very high empathy, and it's been out of balance with my assertiveness in the past. So I've been a softie. People will tell me a sob story, and I'll be inclined to give in. But when I give in, I've had to learn, I start to resent that person then, and that muddies the relationship. Going back to the relationship, that muddies the water in the relationship, and it's not being honest. So my policy might be a little more egregious. Mine is a 2 business day cancellation policy. And here's an interesting thing I noticed. Even though I've been in business 20 years, like I said, that was my Achilles heel. Abandonment issues from other parts of my life, that's another story. But when I got really crystal clear that I want to be somebody who's authentic and honest in the relationship, guess what happened? It was feels like magic. I don't think I've had a cancellation for months. For months. So it's in you.
I also wanted to mention support from our network. And all of us are in this amazing group that Jennifer has created, this book, the Sisterhood of the Grit Authors. So she created a whole community around that, and it's called Grit Community, cleverly enough. But you don't have to be an author to be in the book, in the online group. But she has speakers that come in every month, and I just think it's great because I will say even this last week has been very difficult. I've had a lot of letdowns, and both of us have been working on some projects together, and we feel like it's moving ahead, and then there's a setback, or it's like, oh my gosh, we're so down. What do we do? And it's true. But then the next day we'll get great news. So it's just, you have to, and it's even hard for me. It's very hard to be resilient, but then you just have to find a way to recharge. But I think I've learned that from all these great ladies, because you just put it out there to your group or text like Jennifer and a few other ladies, what do you think? I had this day. And they're like, you know what? Just go get a massage. You can't go get a massage all the time. Go do something that makes you feel good. Go get a latte. Do you? Okay. Well, I have 3 kids. I can't always just go do that. But like, go get a latte. Go take a walk. Go do a run, or set yourself a spa day, even if it's a little bit out or something. You have to find a way. But I feel like just telling somebody, and Michelle can probably speak to this with the mental health, if I get it out of my head, it feels so much better. Is that a thing?
Yes, there's more space in this. Okay. There's more space in this room than there is in your head. So when we talk and we say things out loud that we're struggling with, that we're dealing with, we want let this giant room hold all those thoughts and all those worries and fears, as opposed to your very small head in comparison to the room.
Yeah, and I just like to add, like, who likes disappointment, right? None of us, but it's a part of life. And you often hear that failure is a part of success. And so, yes, you could be on your grind, putting in the work, setting up the calls, making the appointments, and you're looking forward to all of those things coming to fruition. But then life starts lifing, right? And people don't show up, and contacts don't come through. And so, yes, it is annoying and frustrating because we're human. You think about the same way in your lives, you get disappointed. But then I think you have to stop, breathe, be present in the moment, and to remember your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What's your why and your purpose to renew you and to refresh you and to really re-energize you about continuing to go on? You know, and to realize that these things will happen, that you're not the only one. You know, that this is just a natural part of the process. And I think the more we can be honest with this is just a part in the destination, it's not the destination, it's just a part of the journey, but it's not the destination. To know that, yeah, we're gonna have disappointments, we're gonna have failed appointments, we're going to have setbacks, but we pause, we remember our why, we re-energize ourselves and we refocus and we get back up and we get another chance to do it the next day, right? Because it's just a part of the journey.
So everything everyone said, and what I can add to that is being resilient is to get over things quickly, no matter what it takes. You have to learn how to get over things quickly, because it's not going to serve you any good to take those things around with you all day. I call it wearing it on your sleeve. There's no sense in wearing it on your sleeve. You take those things off your sleeve, and for me, being a woman and a black woman, I've had to enter rooms where it's just me as a woman, or it's just me being a black person, or just a black woman. I couldn't contribute at first because I would walk into that room with all that on my sleeve. Oh, I'm going to be the only one, or I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be that. When I learned how to take all of that off my sleeve to show up as this fierce person that I am, I'm able to show up fully and to be able to contribute in the way that I should. And so when I make a mistake as well, I just get over it quickly, because we're going to make mistakes. I still make mistakes. I'm always saying, allow me to make a mistake. And I promise you, I will come back and apologize, or I will try to fix it. And if I can't fix it, I don't carry that either. So that's what resilience is. It's not to carry all of that around with you. And you'll keep hearing me talk about fear. Kick fear in the butt. Yes. Kick fear in the butt. Do it anyway. Do it with that fear in front of you, because that's the only thing that's going to help us to go from here to there in which we are to be. We're not saying show up even at a networking event like this and feel comfortable, but you won't move forward if you just, half of the battle is just showing up. So that's what I've learned to do. I always make sure that I show up and I show up whole. And so that's where resilience comes from for me.
I just want to add really quickly, especially since there's students in the audience, so I used to work in education while doing my practice part-time, and I worked in high schools, and then I worked with a lot of college-age kids. This is not linear. And I think, especially the young adults who are getting ready to enter the workforce, or you're in college and you think it should be going this direction and it's not. So I'm getting ready to do a keynote, and the title of it is called Embrace the Swerve, which just means like become flexible. Every detour, every opportunity builds that resilience. Mm-hmm. Every detour takes you exactly where you're supposed to be. There are no coincidences. So even if it feels like you're in a really lousy job that you hate, yeah, it's gonna suck. You don't have to stay long. But you're gonna take something from there. You're gonna grow. Mm-hmm. You're gonna make a connection. You're gonna make another relationship. So whatever you can do to, like I said, embrace that swerve and become agile will build that resiliency. Mm-hmm.
These are all great points, and I think it's the hardships that truly help implement our character. And I can tell you right now, when I graduated from 18, I didn't get accepted to Fontbonne. I actually got denied to every school that I applied for because I didn't apply for my ACT. Because I was a first-generation college student, and I didn't know that you had to take an ACT in order to get to college. So in order to be resilient, I chose to go to Merrimack, completed my associates, and then because of Fontbonne, so many doors opened because I became a transferred student, and that's when life began. So if I would have just settled and said, oh, I didn't get accepted, that's it, I don't know what it would have looked like, but it would look a heck of a lot different than it does today. So I challenge you, every hardship that you endure, be resilient, have a backbone, get up and keep trying again and again and again. Yes. And if you've ever watched the documentary about Michael Jordan, about how his basketball journey became the legend that he is today, that is pure resilience in the making. So that leads me into the next saga, which the I of grit is intention. So when you're thinking about building out your life legacy, obviously learning is a huge component of being a lifelong learner, to be intentional about that journey. And obviously mental health and all of your achievements come into fold with that. But as you think about your intentional journey for professional development, how is that unfolded with your mental health, with your professional development, and then how do you balance all of that?
Okay, I'll start here. Just a couple of minutes ago, you heard me even say this about myself. I said my fear self that was a time that would have never come out of my mouth. I would not have recognized the fact that I can say something like that out loud. So it's about being intentional. Your words matter. Wherever that was, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words would never hurt me. That is not true, because words do hurt. And so we have to make sure that we're building ourselves up and being intentional about that. Each year I choose a word, and for 2022, the word for me was intentional. So everything that came my way, or everything that I got involved in, everything around my life, whether it was in my personal life, in my work life, or in my community life, I took that intentional with me. I was really intentional about how I handled things, intentional about how I treated other people, intentional about how I treated myself. Just intention. Intention is everything. You have to, we may end up, and you young people, you may end up, you're being intentional, but right at that time, you don't get exactly what you want. But when you start to learn to grow, you'll know that that's just in that time and place at that time. But if you're intentional, you'll realize that you'll be able to look back on that, because time moves forward. Either 5 years from now, you're going to be talking about what you were intentional about doing it, and then those 5 years come, and either it's happened or it didn't happen. But it's about you being intentional about those type of things.
So I have a goal. Probably it's based on how I grew up. But when I was at Fontbonne, I was actually in public accounting as a CPA. So my degree from Fontbonne is a Master's of Science in Taxation. At the time, I wasn't very happy. And there was a woman here in St. Louis, her name was Laura Batchelor, she no longer lives here, but she was a therapist. And a friend of mine at the time said, Roberta, I think you need therapy. I think you need to see a therapist. And at the time I was like, what do you mean? I was kind of defensive. But I went, and this woman helped me change my life. And she provided me with boundaries, limits, structures, consistency, structure, and routine. And I fell in love with that. And I wanted my whole life to be about that. And I saw my husband out there and made me cry, because I was dating all the wrong kinds of people at the time, some of whom were actually abusive. And if it had not been that I went to therapy and saw Laura, I never would have met my husband, who's sitting out there in the audience. And this will be our 25-year anniversary this year. So, woo! So I have a mission. I love helping people, and I want to grow my company. Now I've expanded it to take therapy into the workplace, not literally, but through executive coaching, helping leaders treat their employees better. And I am going to accomplish my goal or die trying. I'm just blessed with this huge passion. I don't know where it came from, except maybe it came from Laura and her help. So that's what fuels me.
Well, ditto. I kind of share. It seems like we have similar backgrounds and passions. I too am an executive coach and do leadership development. And so I always say the best thing that we can be as leaders is to be learners. The best thing we can be as leaders is to be learners. And as I look around the room, I see a room full of leaders. And oftentimes people will say in the work that I do, well, Carla, you can't help me because I'm not a leader. And I was like, you're not? I've never met a human being who was not a leader. And so one of my favorite books is The Leader Who Has No Title. Leadership is really just influence. And influence is something that we all have the capability of doing. It's something that we do every day, whether we're doing it intentionally or unintentionally. We're always influencing other people. And so all of us are leaders. And so as a leader, we should be learning leaders and lifelong leaders, and so committed to it. And you can see my chapter in growth. I wrote about intentional leadership since a little girl. I developed this habit of living outside of my comfort zone and staying in the growth zone. And so always raising my hand early and often and challenging myself. And how I talk about my family and friends is not just something that I say, but if you talk to many of my friends or many of my family members, they will tell you that they have observed me living my life in that habit of being a learning leader, and not just classroom learning. Many of you I see around the room, you're in the midst of classroom learning, but what are different ways, not just formal learning, but also informal learning. And so, and not just learning about the things that you are excited about, I always are passionate about, I always challenge myself to also learn things outside of the field or the interest that I had too. And so it's really paid off well in my professional development. So I've spent the last 2+ decades within the world of human resources as a vice president, executive coach. And so, but I always challenge myself, while I want to make sure that I'm abreast and knowledgeable of the field of human resources, I challenge myself to study outside of those areas too, in other business lanes as well, so you can become a well-rounded individual and well-rounded professional as well. So learning is something that never stops, and learning that we should always be doing in many different modalities too.
So when this is also a part of my chapter in growth. In 2018, I decided I was going to do everything that scared the hell out of me. So I became extremely intentional, and that started with quitting my job and leaving really lousy pay on the table, lousy benefits, to invest in myself. And often when you're in certain institutions, often, unfortunately, like education, they really need you to be a certain type, and I'm not. And so by the time I left my tenure in education, I vowed that if I was going to do this, I was going to do this being 100% authentically myself. Even if that includes leaving money on the table, leaving speaking engagements on the table, I'm out. If you don't want me, that's okay. Because I am not for everyone. And that was the intentionality that I just runs through my veins at this point. I'm proud of the fact that I'm not for everybody, because I'm not supposed to be for everybody. So if you can, again, it's a little bit difficult if you're just like starting your career or you just want to get your first job. But as you move along throughout the different jobs that you have, like really letting that sink into your bones, you are not for everybody, and you are not supposed to be for everybody, and that's okay. And when you can really lean into that, that's when the magic happens. I think you were mentioning earlier, like laws of attraction just start happening.
All these ladies say such great things. I'm so proud to know you and sit here. I was just thinking, so when I went to Fontbonne, I graduated in '99. I always liked art. I always enjoyed art. I was really into drawing and painting, and I had this desire to go study abroad. I have no idea why. I can't explain. It was like a spark inside of me. So I pushed. There wasn't even a program here to go abroad, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a career advisor, and my friend Maria and I were intentional about, finding a path to get to Florence to study art. So we went, and it worked out, and it was great, and we stayed there, and we studied, and we went to this sister school, or this other school there that they partnered with that allowed us to do this. When we came back and I graduated, Maria, my friend I went with, stayed for a master's program, and then she went into education. Great. I wanted to start making money. Of course, I had an art degree. So what am I going to do with an art degree? But I've always lived by everything's going to work out. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do. It's going to work out. I don't know how it has, but it always does. So like Michelle said, like the paths will align and everything that's supposed to happen does. So and at this time, I don't think it's the same way now, but when you were 22 back in the 90s, you had to actually get a job and get insurance off of your parents' insurance. I had to work. My parents were like, you need to figure out what you're doing. So I was looking at different options, and I didn't want to work at a Minuteman printing press making $6 an hour, and there wasn't a lot because I didn't have a strong concentration in graphic design. So I just went as a temp to start answering phones at an accounting firm. And I met Mark O'Donnell, my mentor, who I still work with today, 24 years later. It was only temporary. I was only going to be there 3 months. I hated accounting. I thought everyone there was so boring. I was like, how am I going to do this for the rest of my life? But Mark O'Donnell is an amazing mentor. I found my people there. All the people were so nice. I just thought, I'm the youngest person. Everybody's a lot older than me, and I don't click with anyone. But I really did. And they liked me, and they liked what I did, and they put me into business development, and they allowed me to use my skill, which I think, if I would have known this, I would have gone into communications in college. I never even knew this was a thing. And I love connecting people. I love helping people. I love serving people. And everyone I meet, I don't care if I make a sale, but I do because people like to do business with me. So it just comes. Relationship building comes. And I just was always intentional about that, and I kind of gave myself promotions. I was like, I think I need a new title. I need to be marketing director. I need to be business development leader. And I don't know, I just am so comfortable. I just gave myself promotions over the years, and they were like, yeah, that's true. Actually, you should. You've done this role. Because they've always told me, Mark, a great mentor, said, do the job you want before you ask for it. And I was already filling this role. And I said, no one's in this space, and I feel like I've been here long enough, and I won this award, and I want to know what my title is. What should I put? And they're like, I said, I can't put down that I'm like an administrative assistant. So what do you think? And they're like, what do you want? And I'm like, marketing manager, marketing director, I don't know. So they're like, okay, let's do it. So if you're just intentional and you follow your path, it will work. That's kind of my advice. I know I ramble a lot, but okay.
I think you can see a theme here with support and intention. And I have a similar experience when I was here at Fontbonne before going on to graduate school. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into counseling, which I ended up getting 2 masters in, or IO psychology. So they allowed me to do an independent study so I could pursue that and be intentional about what my future would look like. So I love all these incredible women up here giving incredible advice, because this is lifelong lessons. This is so much wisdom right here to share with all of you. So that leads us to our last rounding out component of grit, the tenacity piece. So, many leaders, you will hear about how they attribute much of their success from taking risks to advance their career. So have any of you been tenacious in your career development, or, when you're thinking about how you're going to level up?
I'll just say mine real quick so everybody else can share their stories. I said it during the last question. I quit my job. I'd had enough. I feel like that's a pretty big jump. It was a difficult decision because, like I said, I was getting crummy pay, crummy health insurance, but at least it was consistent. It was safe. And I was a mom now. And so I think kids, they change it. And, to take that risk with having a young child at home, it was a lot. So, but I highly recommend quitting your job to follow your passions and your, whatever's burning in your veins that you want to do, go get it, because you can have it.
Go ahead, Carla.
After you, go ahead.
Mine's similar. Mine was I quit public accounting. I'd been in it for maybe 18 years, and that's a big coup that you've done, Marianne, because I tried and attempted to do business development in public accounting, and at the time, they thought only people who were partners were wise enough to do that. And I used to get yelled at for being too nice and being too talkative. In my year-end evaluations, they used to say, we want people who are serious. Put your head down and do your work. I talk too much. But anyway, I left all that, and that really was scary. It was soon after I got my Master's of Science in Taxation, which I thought at the time was going to be my ticket to a promotion, because I thought, well, now I've got the sequin on. An MST in public accounting is a pretty big deal. But it didn't matter too much after I got mine. So I remember finding, do you all remember who Joan London was, or still is? She's still alive, but she was an anchor woman. And she put out a book that was called A Bend in the Road is Not the End of the Road. And it was about her career and why she left. Can't remember what channel it was, but she left to go out on her own. And I studied that book when I was trying to decide what to do. And then I decided that since I fell in love with the therapy world, I should get a degree in therapy. And that's when I left public accounting. And I guess I haven't looked back. But at the time, it was quite frightening, because at the time, it felt like a loss of identity. Maybe you went through that too, I don't know. But then you wonder, who am I? And you can feel like you're not grounded. At least I did for a while.
And I too have quit a job, a good paying job, a corporate job. And I remember when I quit, I always knew that I would take my education and my experience and start my own consulting firm. So that was always on the list. So I decided to take that leap in 06, 07. And I remember many of my girlfriends were still in corporate. And they were like, what in the world that you do? It was just something that many were not doing in my circle. They were still back in the corporate world, very good jobs. And they were like, you left a 6-figure salary. You are a vice president. You're a woman of color. You're just going to give it all up. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to give it all up. I want to do something. And so as crazy as it was, I look back now, but it was such a ride. I did start my own consulting company. But the story I want to tell quickly is that I'm always challenging myself to take risks. I always say we either invest our lives in taking risks, or we spend our lives collecting regret. And so I don't want to collect regret. I want to take risks. And I try to take calculated risks, but nonetheless take risks. And so my last year, when the pandemic hit, I had this crazy idea. I went to my husband, and he was like, okay, I was going to pursue my MBA. And my husband's like, where did this come from? You said we had this agreement that I would not pursue becoming my PhD until the kids got older. And so he was like, you never said anything about an MBA, so you said PhD and we have an agreement. I was like, well, but the opportunity, always these crazy things, always taking risks. I decided to put my ring in the hat and Wash U and Olin Business School and do their executive MBA program. And I heard that it was a 20-month, very rigorous and very intense program. And so I was like, I'll go ahead and do it. So I put tossed my ring in the hat, tossed my hat in the ring. Let me say correctly, tossed my hat in the ring, and just to see where it would land. So I got accepted in December, long story short, paid my deposit in January. Everything was set, looked at the schedule, and the schedule was set to start in April of 2022. April 2020, and I should have graduated December 21st. I'm like, I can do this, because I have a high school senior. She graduates in May of 2022. I'll graduate in December. Had it all, how you can have your life all mapped out. This will work perfectly. So it's just great. I won't have 6 months to dedicate to her. Well, there was this little thing called a pandemic that happened in March. I didn't know that. So January, I enrolled and said yes, paid my deposit. And then here you come, March, here is a pandemic that really just tossed everything up in the air. And so here you have now, it really kind of disrupted the schedule for graduation. It disrupted the whole schedule for classes. And then now my kids came home, and they were now I have 2 children, my husband and I. They were both virtual learners, so I became a virtual school teacher, and I'm working from home, and the chaos on top of chaos, and that was happening probably in your homes too, not just mine. But it was a lot going on. And there was a part of me that says, stop and do it later. Tell them that you'll catch them on the next wave, the next cohort. There's too much going on. It's a pandemic. I had a million reasons to quit, a million valid reasons to quit. It was a lot going on in the pandemic, a lot of ambiguity, a lot of uncertainty, and certainly, like I said, valid excuses. But I decided that that's just not me. I've never been the person to back down from a challenge, so I decided to go ahead and do it. And it was rough.
it was hard, but it was the best growing experience. And you're talking about really having to put into practice the principles of grit, the principles of being tenacious, the principles of being resilient, and to keep going. So I say that to you today. You think about life challenges, and sometimes you may think, I should, when you take a risk and you put yourself out there, it doesn't mean that everything's going to go smoothly. Sometimes you're going to, as soon as you raise your hand to say yes, here comes the opposition, right, and the challenge, and there's a tendency to say, well, maybe I shouldn't do this, maybe this isn't for me. But just because there's a challenge doesn't mean that it's not for you. It doesn't mean that you're not moving in the right direction. I want to encourage you, if you raised your hand recently, or if you're thinking about raising your hand, and if the challenges come, keep going, because it will pay off. And so keep going, be tenacious, be resilient, have grit and tenacity. It will pay off in the end.
Yes, it will.
Wash U MBA right there.
Yes, it will. I would say where tenacious come with me is that I have a tendency to go, I say I have the tendency to go to the unknown, but I always say that I always end up where God wants me to be. And so with BHR, Behavioral Health Response, I work at BHR, I'm the CEO, president and CEO. And it's a clinical organization. And I started working there 26 years ago, but I've been the CEO for the last 10 years. And the risk that I took accepting the CEO job was the fact that I'm at a clinical company, I'm going to be the CEO, I'm not clinical. But where the risk came in at, and I learned how to deal with it, was the fact that I didn't have to be clinical. All I needed to do was put the right people in the right places. Right. I didn't have to be that clinical person. And so with my wonderful MBA from Fontbonne, I really used my business sense. And so I've been able to take risks for the organization in ways that is usually coming from a business point of view, but it all works out clinically, but those are the type of risks that I've been able to do and, to be able to step into. And so I think about, and I know now that this is one of the real reasons that BHR has grown over the years. We decided that it is a nonprofit agency, ran it like a for-profit. We spun off a for-profit up under the nonprofit where we don't have to do fundraisers. It's enough chicken dinners going around in St. Louis. And so what we do is we use our for-profit to sell the services, our clinical services that we are very, very, very good at. So we sell those services, and then that's a way at a nonprofit agency I'm able to give raises, able to invest back into the organization when it comes to IT and different things like that. It was risky. It has 100% paid off. It's led the organization to be debt-free. We're debt-free, able to give raises. At the time when COVID came, where everyone else was laying off or furloughing, we did not lay off one employee. We were able to keep all of our employees, and all of that came from some of the decisions and the risk-making that ended up really working out for the organization when the unknown happened, because you never know when that's going to be. And the other way I realized that I take risk is that, I'll say that what some people call it is hang out with the big dogs, right? It's not that I hang out with the big dogs, but I didn't get myself caught up into BHR being a behavioral health organization, mental health organization, and not get outside of the four walls. Where I'm able to really learn and help the organization to grow is for me getting with other industry leaders that are not even doing things in behavioral health or in mental health. We took an idea from FedEx, how they track their packages. And for BHR, we have clinicians that work from home, and they go and visit people at homes doing their assessments and different things. And we wanted to make sure that we were like, how do we keep up with who we send out? Who's going to be the closest to this situation and that situation? Well, we went, and I went to this conference, and I learned about how FedEx tracked their packages. And so we ended up getting the same tool to bring it internal to BHR to track the employees that we needed to be in a particular place at a particular time. And so you take risks by learning that, and I'm saying this to you all, whatever your degree is in or whatever you're going after, that doesn't mean, if it's marketing, don't just stay in the four walls of marketing. Learn about other disciplines, or put other disciplines around you, because staying in those four walls would never give you that opportunity to take some really smart risk.
And this is why Pat was named top Titan 2 years in a row. Out of 100 people in St. Louis, she's a top Titan 2 years in a row.
Going back to my role at the CPA firm, I guess I couldn't have promoted myself if I wasn't ready, right? So let's just go back to that for a second. I started answering phones. I started as a receptionist. I had no experience in an office at all at 22. So I was literally just answering phones, and I moved up and they started having me do tax processing. I never was allowed to prepare any tax returns. I'm not a numbers person, so don't worry, that was never an issue. Never ask me an accounting question. I have friends. So I say I'm an agent for our accountants now. But then when they figured out I could run events and I could talk to people, like most accountants are very introverted and can't. Also, one other interesting thing, I was kind of promoted to more of a role where I could help both of the partners. It was a small firm with 2 partners, and they had interviewed, I think, 30 other candidates to try to find somebody on a disc test that would personality match both personalities of the partners, Mark and Jim. And I was the only one who could match both of them, which was crazy. And Mark looked at the resumes like, an art major, huh? Okay, I guess we're hiring her. So after that temp position, I moved up, and then I started running events, and I was able to work with both of them. So I think just being tenacious to move up and not settle for not just being an admin, doing tax processing. I actually have the 3 kids. I didn't want to work on the Saturdays anymore once they got to a certain age. I was like, it's not fair to them. Weekends are for family. I feel like I need to pull back from the tax department and helping them, and I could do business development full-time, where I was doing business development partially, not full-time, and then during tax season, all hands on deck. So I was able to advocate for myself and my family to get that role. So they hired someone else to fill that space, because I guess, hopefully, I was doing so well with the business development. We were growing, and they saw value in that. The other thing is, Roberta, like you said, most accounting firms, especially like 20 years ago, were not open to this. It takes a special person who's, Mark is a very open-minded. He's kind of a businessman practicing accounting. He's really not an accountant. He loves practice development. He values that, so you need to find the right advocate, which is also important. You need a mentor, an advocate, and a coach. One of these ladies, and then a community of support. So all those things, plus your tenacity and your grit, can push you forward. Oh, and then Roberta, I have one more question. If you ever decide to go back to public accounting, I'm also on the recruiting committee. So I'm just going to put that pitch in there. We pull from a lot of other big firms that have burned out and do not allow their accountants to go out and network and everything. We are very open to that. We would love to hire you if you're ever open to that.
I'm very, very flattered.
That's hilarious. And obviously, when I had the idea of building out the first book that 2 of the panelists were on Owning Your Grit, it took a lot of courage to think of this idea and how I was going to bring it to fruition. So follow those ideas, follow those light bulb moments, as I call them, because that's your inner compass and your passion, which is going to dictate whatever is going to really fill your cup. So, and now here we are, 3 books later, with all of these incredible ladies and these leaders. So I just wanted to ask one more question to all of you. So as you think back about your days at Fontbonne, how has it personally impacted you today?
as I said, I wasn't very happy, and I was dating the wrong kind of people for me at the time that I went to Fontbonne. I found the campus just to be a very, very special place. To me, the campus feels very spiritual. It felt to me like a sanctuary. I had to really stretch myself because actually, when you study taxation, it's more like studying law. So I used to tape record. We still have little handheld tape recorders back in the day. I used to tape record every class, and then I would go home and I would play it over probably 3 times each. I was the only one in the class that taped everything. I was the only female in the class. And sometimes I'd cry if I didn't understand something, and none of the and there were males in the class that actually said to me, "Roberta, you don't look like a CPA. What are you doing in this class?" So I had to go through some of that. But I always felt very held, like it was a sacred, special container, and it gave me a structure. It gave me, because I graduated with all A's, and the fact that I could do that when I thought I was too stupid to get through the program by listening to my tape recordings over and over and over and over again till I got it right, that actually boosted my confidence.
I was going to say, I think Fontbonne is very special. It's a small school where everyone knows your name, and you're not just a number, like at a big school. So I was able to push to go on my study abroad, and people listen to me, and I'm still friends with my professors, and I'm Facebook friends with them, and now my daughter's an artist, and she really wants to go to Fontbonne, so Emily's going to give her a tour. But she actually wants to be an accountant, which is great, Roberta. I don't even understand this, but she's got the right and the left brain thing going on. My husband's an engineer. She's got all the math, and then she's got all the art, and she's way better at art than I was. So she wants to take some art classes, but focus on accounting. So there we go.
And I would just add going back to the connections and the relationships that I built here. I am still friends with many of the people that I attended class with, and I would say the relationship capital. And so it really is that connections are key to success. And I, too, am proud to say that I'm a scholar grad with honors, and so from here, and it was the support of the staff, too. I will say I really felt supported in my time here from the administrators whenever I needed something, from the faculty as well. Those were great memories that I have, too, and always being able to go into any of their offices anytime and to, and get the support I needed, whether it was office hours or even hanging out after class a few moments just to get clarity on a project or something. They were never rushed, but always willing to do that. And so, yes, the support of the faculty and staff and administration, as well as those connections and keys. Like I said, when you're learning, yes, we're here to learn, but don't underestimate the relationship capital piece, because yes, you're here to get all the academics, and to get the degree, of course, because that's what you're paying for, but don't underestimate the relationship capital. And sometimes I know it's easy to rush into class and rush out because you have deadlines and finals and things to do, but take the time to say hello, to get to know that person, make that personal connection, because you don't know who may be those lifelong friends that you'll call on in the business world later on in life as well.
I would say my time here was a little different because I participated in what was called options. I was working full-time, and I got my MBA in the evening. It was a 2-year program. You started with a cohort, you ended with the cohort, which really helped with building relationships at the time. But we had a sense of community because we started together, we ended together, we knew that we were with Fontbonne, and then saying that piece of knowing that you're in a place of spirituality was really great and key at the time. And from that, I've come back to give back. I participate in the scholarship program, but also I am now a board trustee for Fontbonne, and so it stays forever with me, and I am so grateful for that.
I was not an A+ straight A student or scholar. if you can believe that, just in the few times I've spoken. Fonbon changed the trajectory of my entire career and entire life, and it was, again, due to relationships. So I was a junior, and I was sitting outside smoking cigs, thinking I was too cool. And Jerry Johnson, who was a prominent mental health therapist in St. Louis, came walking by. And he was actually the father of a girl that I went to grade school with, and I hadn't seen in years. And so he's sitting down, and we're talking, and I'm telling him about this terrible internship that I'm in. It was awful. And he looks at me and he goes, "Well, quit." This is where I got my quitting from. Okay, I'm just having like this light bulb moment, okay. But he looks at me and goes, "Well, quit. Come work for me, and I'll teach you everything they'll never teach you in school." And so I did, and I did an 8-year unpaid internship with Jerry, where I did nothing but sit and observe therapy sessions every opportunity that I could. So the relationships here changed everything for me. So.
This is great advice, and I had a very similar experience too, because the cohort here, as a transfer student, I was intimidated. I was like, oh my gosh, these guys have been here for 2 years. How am I going to connect? Well, I initially got integrated into the psychology program, and I just blended right in. I finally felt like I fit in. I was the secretary for the psychology club, because I love psychology, and I just found my people, and they were the reason why I ended up going into grad school and taking my GRE and knowing the next steps to be prepared to have that door open. So I had a very similar experience here, and even as a parent, I had an experience to actually come back to Fontbonne and utilize the services. So my oldest son, Mason, was diagnosed with a speech delay, and I was able to actually come back as a parent, and he received services through our speech pathology program here on campus. So incredible. Fontbonne's amazing, yes. So now I'm going to open it up to questions. So if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask any of the panelists in the audience, feel free to do so.
What tips do you have for someone who's trying to find a mentor?
Do you want to talk? Did you want to say
No, I
something?
just want to make sure you heard.
Oh, yes, I did. So her question was, what are your tips to be able to secure a mentor?
I'm not sure. I have a lot of great advice because mine fell in my lap. He was my boss. And I mean, you can't really find one. They have to find you. That's the only advice I can give. Does anybody else have anything? Okay.
I was going to say to think about what type of, because there are many different types of mentors too, and so to have a goal, begin with the end in mind, and so think about what type of mentor do I want, and so and then think about who. Okay, once you identify the mentor that you want, and then think about who is already where you want to be. So let's say if you want a professional mentor and you want to be the CEO of a company one day. And so you think about who is a CEO that I respect, that's successful, credible, or, the things that are characteristics, I would really say that has the characteristics and traits, the ability, and the qualities that you respect and that you feel that you can learn from. And then you have to go out and don't just walk up to that person and just say, will you be my mentor? Because that's a real big turnoff, because you have to realize that most of the times they're very busy individuals, very demanding schedules, and they need you to be serious. So I always tell individuals to make sure you are prepared when you approach a mentor, and take them out and see how you can serve them, and see how, if you want to be a professional speaker, or you want to be a graphic designer, find somebody, whatever it may be, a psychologist, find someone who's already successful where you want to be, and see if you can glean from them, because that's all a mentor is. There's someone who's already reached where you're trying to go, and they can help you navigate the journey for you. And so sometimes where they may have taken 5 or 10 years to get to where they are, they can help you get there in maybe 3 to 5, because they're passing you on those nuggets, about, hey, I did this, but you don't have to do that. Or, and there's someone that you can meet with on a regular basis. You can glean from their wisdom. But I also say too, once you identify that mentor and someone agrees to be your mentor, to make sure when you have those meetings on a monthly basis is be prepared. Do not waste their time. Show up, be intentional, have the questions that you need to ask from them. Don't show up like, I don't have anything to talk about, have an agenda, what you're trying to get from them. And then if they give you homework assignments, if they give you things to do, make sure you go do them. So the next 30 days when you meet again, you're able to report out and say, last week these were some insights or some things you shared with me to do, so here's what I've done. They'll see that you're serious about the relationship. They'll see it's a good investment of their time, a good investment of your time, and it'll be a more successful and enriching relationship as well.
It's about the relationship as well. We keep talking about relationship. So you don't really have to ask anyone to be your mentor. You can do things like, I remember in the past, there's this, an award, it's for the most influential women. Most influential women. It's with the Business Journal. I eventually became one, right? But it was years ago that I remember getting that newspaper. It comes up every year. I went through there and I just started reading about those women. So I decided to take half of them. I got their information and I reached out to them and asked them if they give me a half hour of their time. And you'll be surprised how willing people will be to give you a half hour of their time. And so it doesn't have to be as formal. So you go, but you go in there prepared, ready to ask whatever that is, because they're giving you 30 minutes of their time. Those 30 minutes could change your life. But then out of some of those, it may be someone that you want to keep more in contact with. And so when you're building that relationship, it is a little work sometimes, but it's not a one-way street. You find out when their birthday is, you drop them a birthday card, or you just send them something to say, hey, wanted to give you some updates on me, or I'm just trying to see how you're doing. You could have dropped something at Valentine's Day. Hey, happy Valentine's Day. You want to stay in front of them so they don't forget about you. But it is a two-way street, but it's not about you trying to get a mentor because it's give me, give me. It is a two-way street, but it's about building their relationships, and the mentoring relationship will happen as times go by. It will naturally happen.
And Pat is great at that. I remember getting, I still have it, it's in my bedroom, the Blessing Heart. And it just meant so much because I think of her as a mentor. She is incredible. I want to grow up and be like her someday. So to get a Blessing Heart from her, I was just like blown away that she would take the time to do that. So, yeah. And it was sincere. Yeah? This is Marianne. That's
Mary.
Carla? Yep.
I'm sorry. My question is for Carla. I wanted to know where you see the influence of intelligence with this new generation of youth.
That's a good question.
Oh, Roberta then.
Roberta. Roberta.
That's okay. You're good. Yeah.
The question is, where do I see emotional intelligence influencing the next generation of leaders? I can just think of my day today. When I heard, I was, okay, nobody will know who this is, so no wrecked confidences. But just to be getting ready to coach somebody that I've been coaching for several months, and for that person to come onto the call, and I said, what's wrong? You don't look happy. And he said, I was all prepared because the CEO was coming to visit my branch. I got all ready. I thought I was going to be spending all day in meetings with the CEO. And the CEO got here and I was iced out. What do you mean? I said, what do you mean you got iced out? He said they shut the door on me and they spent the whole day in meetings with the GM. And this was who was his father, so there's a family-owned business twist in here. But the thing is, that guy was not treated well. Nobody sat down with him and explained. They didn't have an agenda for the CEO. He rearranged his whole day. And what I have found out in this one particular company is there are multiple leaders who I suspect have low EQ. If they had higher EQ, they would have said to this guy, okay, we know you were planning on meeting with us. We know you arranged your whole day to be with us. We can't do that today because this is what came up. we would like to be with you, but right now something, I'm making this up. Some bigger priority came up, or we're going to spend time with you next week, or whatever it is. But you can't treat people like that. This guy is so dejected, he wants to quit. He said, I don't even want to come to work. And you cannot treat people like that. They are not going to want to go the extra mile. So the next generation of leaders has to understand how to relate to people, how to build the relationship. And in the model I use, the research that Dr. Steven Stein has done says that the CEOs that are most profitable are highest in these 3 skills. Confidence, which I call it ACE. Assertiveness, confidence, and empathy. And they have to be well balanced in those 3 pieces, which I'm sure you are. So I think it's super important, because Time Magazine has published an article that 90% of top performers are the ones with high EQ. And the good news is that's a skill. It's not like the DISC, which is a personality indicator. Anybody at any time can do the skill building to build their emotional intelligence, which I think is very optimistic.
Okay, well, I guess we're going to be wrapping things up. So, Emily, would you like to come up?
Oh my goodness, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. And how about another big round of applause for these amazing women? Gosh, I mean, what a legacy of Fontbonne alum, and what hope for you all in networking opportunities and mentors and just lots of opportunity ahead. So thank you again to Wendy, to Jennifer, to all of you amazing women for joining us tonight as we work towards career development. On your way out, there's a table that has resources for you, students and alumni, ways that you can connect and engage on Handshake that we're using through our office, in my interview practice skills, my card, anything you guys need from a career development perspective, I'm here for you. I look forward to collaborating with you, and again, we thank you all very much. Oh, yes. Sorry, we're drawing your winner from your networking activity when you came in. I thought it was a ton of fun. All right. Oh, that one doesn't have a name.
Oh, shoot.
I feel
Yeah,
like.
no name.
Hold on.
That's actually mine.
I was going to say, this is Jennifer, because that's my writing. So, can Jen win?
Okay.
Yay!
Thank you.
Congratulations. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, so I tell you what, we'll do another drawing for the books. How's that? Should we do 3 or 1? Is that okay? Let's do 3 different ones. Okay. So first we have Tim Brennan. All right. Oh, there he is. Hi, Tim. Next, we have Scott Schuler. Am I saying the name right? Are you sure? Okay. Thank you. And Sarah Schleibel, our amazing photographer for the evening. Thank you. And last, Pat Coleman. Okay. I think she has one already. And Nick Cook. Oh, Nick was here earlier. He had to leave, but I can save it for him. He was excited to be here. All right, thank you all so much. And then a little thank you for you guys on your way out.